I didn't realize this was a thing. Can you talk about that for a minute? And I mean, what is it, and what level of organization does this sport have, and what do you do?
Well, I'm just I like interesting hobbies. Basically, I just don't like to be bored. Basically, and I'm not easily bored because I have so many cool hobbies, right?
Yeah.
Um, I've been a lifelong practitioner of martial arts. I started at age 13 in Spain when we moved back to Spain, and I was doing Eastern martial arts, a very traditional style called Goshindo, and it was fun. It was great, and oh my god, I was so lucky to bump into that because I could have been a teenager in a lot of trouble because I was. It's not like I was a bad boy or anything. I come from a good family. I had great parents, and but the thing is, I was completely unafraid of anything, and I would have tried anything. I would have tried or done anything if I didn't have that balancing philosophy to guide me, which was martial arts for me. It probably saved my life because I could have been a real bumhead. So I've been a lifelong practitioner of it, but at some point in my life, like later on in my 30s, late 30s, at some point it dawned on me. I said, okay, wait a second. I'm a Spaniard. Like, why am I always practicing the martial arts of somebody else's ancestors? Like I come from probably some of the most warlike people the planet has ever seen, if we can take credit for something. My ancestors must have had martial arts. They didn't just grab a sword and go into battle. They must have trained. There must have been fencing. There must have been a skill set, right? Or were they idiots? Well, it turns out they weren't idiots. And turns out there's whole systems of martial arts for every single weapon that you can think about. In medieval Europe, it's just that with the advent of gunpowder, a lot of it was displaced very early on, right? In let's say in Japan, people were carrying swords into the 1860s. So like yesterday, which is why a lot of it's just the same as we're talking about cultural loss with the native population here. It's just more recent. The whole steel blade thing is more recent to them than it is to us. So it takes more digging to find our martial tradition as native Europeans, but it's there. It is most definitely there. Oh my God, once you tap into it, it's so much fun. There's so much knowledge. There's codexes, treatises written in the day. And it's a little bit of a job to decipher them because they're written in medieval language. The drawings, especially the earlier ones, is like done by a 6-year-old. And it's sometimes hard to understand exactly what they mean, but there is martial arts codexes with techniques and whatnot. And there are people right now cracking those codes and learning, making mistakes and rectifying and whatnot. But it's out there. It can be found. And I dove right into it. And then I found out that some crazy Russians and Ukrainians were having high-level championships doing this, like fighting in armor. And with the internet, the first video started coming out of that, and I said, "Oh my God, this is it! This is most definitely what I want to do." And started fishing around. In time, Spain created a medieval fighting team. The United States has a medieval fighting team, and Canada, whatnot. And I just started going deeper into that rabbit hole. And eventually, I have participated in several world championships in medieval fighting. There's two major associations, the IMCF and HMB, which is basically like Eastern Western thing. So which is good because you can have two world championships a year instead of one. And normally, the COVID thing, of course, put everything on hold. But we used to go every year to Europe to fight two world championships by some picturesque castle in a different country every year over there and have a tremendous amount of fun. Hey, yeah, I get injured too and whatnot, whatever. I never had a broken bone before I started practicing this sport. Now I've had several. So yeah, it's just a quest for, you know, once again to find out how my ancestors did things, what motivated them, how did they train, how did they fight, what did they feel, and oh man, it's been very exciting.
And just
So
to be very clear, when Jose gets, he says, get a little injured here and there. I mean, it's, I mean, if you if you haven't seen a picture of someone who was on the wrong end of a medieval fight, it's pretty spectacular. I mean, I've watched obviously modern combat sport and seen the aftermath of modern combat sport, which is oftentimes not pretty. And I mean, this, the things coming out of this medieval stuff are pretty fierce. I mean, what kind of combat are we talking? Is this hand to hand? What kind of weapons are you using? I mean, what are the rules? I mean, is it full contact? I mean, how do you win? I mean, what does that look like?
yeah, man, the picture I showed you, that's just anecdotal. That's just a shiner. That's nothing. That is nothing. I nearly got killed in Prague a few years ago. I lost my helmet while a battle axe was coming down on my skull. And good, the kid probably saved my life, a German fighter. He went like, he, he couldn't stop the blow, but it didn't follow through full force, else he would have killed me. I got 22 stitches out of that one. So I've had much worse than the picture I showed you, for sure. I've broke a couple of ribs in Moscow. I've broken my right hand and my shoulder blade in a castle in Spain. Anyway, it's been a few. So what does it look like? Okay, so there's basically two categories, two main categories. One is group fights and one is duels. In duels, we have duels with different weapons depending on the organization that runs it. Basically, longsword, sword and shield. One of them has sword and buckler and pole arms. And basically, because it's one-on-one, there can be marshals around counting points. So you score points on your opponent. There is strike zones that give you points and all that. And if you hit him on the shield, of course, no points. But then if you defeat his guard and hit him, say, on the leg or on the helmet, then that gives you points. And at the end, they count points and give you the result. In a group fight, basically, the rule is very simple. Last man standing, his team wins. So you have to take them down. You have to take them down. How does it look? Well, a lot of times it looks like grappling in armor and throwing guys. Other times it looks like, coming from behind a guy and, smacking him in the helmet with a battle axe hard enough where you make him pass out and fall on the ground. So whichever way you can do it, that is legal. There's strike zones that are not allowed. You can't hit the back of the neck. You cannot thrust under any circumstances. So it's just impact, like strikes. Yeah. You cannot thrust in the sense that would then give a possibility. Early on in the sport, there was a couple of accidents when thrusting was allowed because weapons can go through the slit in the helmet and go into the eyes and potentially in the brain. So no thrusting. It's just blunt impact. And so the back of the neck, the groin area, the back of the knees and the feet are all illegal areas. You can get a red card for striking those.
But battle axes to the back of the head are fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I got switched off in Prague like that. Like the lights went out and then the lights went back on and I was on the ground. And I didn't see it coming at all. Well, should have turned around. This sport teaches you, it really teaches you about your intuition. You just have a feeling something bad is happening behind your back. You better turn around real quick.
Goodness.